I put on my mask at the post office. And as I was waiting though, and even though I was the only one who was masked, everyone kept their distance. Now, I don't know if it was because of COVID or because I smelled bad. Now, because I don't have COVID, I can smell, and I know that I don't smell that bad. So I don't know why they were keeping their distance if they didn't have a mask, but they believed in distance. Inconsistent. Anyway, I go to the post office, which is something that young people don't do. So that makes me suspicious. I must not be young. I went to the post office because young people, they don't believe in stamps or post offices. They just like, can I just TikTok this? Can I can PDF this, right? But as I was waiting, I saw this. I saw this form. I saw a registration, a voter registration application that you can just pick up and you can fill it out online if you haven't done so yet. I mean, I'm in California, and we're in a state where if you're in California, if you're Asian American, and this show is really for AAPI and the AAXs and the AAFs, Asian American Filipinos, if you haven't registered to vote, you have until 15 days before the election. And we are still 15 days out. There is still time to register. There's a 15-day deadline. And so if you haven't registered to vote, this is the time to register to vote. I will say that there have been times in the course of my being an American, I've been an American all my life, but in my voting life, I've often wondered, God, it's so confusing to vote, so confusing to register. But this is the time where you should know help is available. You can be a registered voter. And if you have any problems, you can call this number. Call the Secretary of State, 1-800-345-VOTE, 1-800-345-VOTE, or 8683. Call the Secretary, California Secretary of State. But you can register to vote. You could do so up to 15 days before the election. And even if you kind of come close and miss, you can contact your county officials and you can register to vote. I say this because early voting has begun. Some people are already going to the party and voting. You should vote. And it's important because some of the things that are coming up, you'll see debates nationwide, and everything nationwide in the midterms matters because it's about control of the Congress. And if a Senate seat is lost or won in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Georgia, in Nevada, those 4 states, those are critical. And you want to make sure that your vote is counted here in California. Well, I'm in California, but there's lots of stuff here in California worth voting for. These gambling initiatives that all should be put off because they're all for special interests, all sorts of things. We'll talk about that the closer we get to election day. But first, you've got to vote. Oh, here's the most important reason why you got to vote. The most important reason you got to vote is the Fifth Circuit Court declared DACA, the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals plan that Obama set forth. He declared it, the court declared it illegal, sent it back to Texas, who's suing to try to stop DACA. It was an executive order put forth by President Obama, has been through the courts. It's a political football. I talk to immigration advocates and they tell me that the only way we're going to make DACA work for everyone, meaning pathway to citizenship, make everyone happy, is if there's comprehensive immigration reform. And the only way you're going to get comprehensive immigration reform is if you, a DACA recipient or a non-DACA recipient, get people to register. Here's this registration application. Register to vote. Because if you register to vote, get the right people in there, then maybe we can get something that is unheard of, a bipartisan approach to immigration that will see that all you DACA folks who've been at it for 10 years are good citizens, are worthy of a pathway to citizenship, and we can get that reform needed to allow DACA to be permanent and have you DACA holders be given that pathway to citizenship and have an overall just we need that broad overhaul of the immigration system. And the easiest thing to do would be to let the DACA folks become citizens. But we only get there if we have the vote. When I say we, I mean people like-minded who want something done with immigration. Register. You still have time. People are already voting, but early voting has begun. But you can still register up to 15 days before the actual vote. So don't despair. There's time. Go out there. Register to vote. Tell them that Uncle Emil sent you. Uncle Emil? Uncle Emil sent me? Yeah. Uncle Emil. Hey, and before we get to, we have our guest coming in today. It's Filipino American History Friday. That's what I call it. I'm going to call it Filipino American History Friday. We're going to talk about other things, and I'm going to bring them on soon. But first, I also want to talk about this thing. We had the opening last night of The Conductor. The Conductor is Ishmael Reed's new play. Ishmael Reed, playwright, novelist, author, poet, Renaissance artist, Renaissance literary artisan. Is that you know, might describe that, or that may be applicable to Ishmael. He wrote The Conductor. It is one man's view of race history in America, and it is a history. And if you want to know why people want to stop people from learning our histories, because there's a lot that we don't know about, and they'd rather keep you in ignorance than allow you to know the truth. And the truth is in a lot of truth is in that play, The Conductor, by Ishmael Reed. Now people say, Emil, I know you have a small part, Emil, in it because you're a small guy. I know, Emil. No, it's a small part because I play a Fox News type commentator, kind of like I call it a Tucker Carlson in brownface. My wife saw it last night. She said, Emil, are you supposed to be Dinesh D'Souza? No, Dinesh D'Souza went to Dartmouth. I went to another Ivy League. It's not Dinesh D'Souza. No, not Dinesh D'Souza. By the way, it's a virtual reading. You can be anywhere and see this play, The Conductor. It's at the theater for thenewcity.net. Anyway, so Ishmael has written this play, and Ishmael's alter ego is the columnist, the main character in the play, the conductor. He's the conductor of a new modern underground railroad. He has this new job because as a conductor, because as a columnist, he advocated for the progressive school board members who wanted to do a number of things in San Francisco, and he got fired. And because he got fired, he became a cause celeb of sorts, but he also became the target of conservative Asian Americans, Indian Americans, Chinese Americans. And he had this side gig as a conductor for a modern underground railroad. That is, you remember the Underground Railroad. It's generally how blacks, or how people in general, were helping blacks escape to freedom. Well, now in this Underground Railroad, blacks run the railroad to help people who are under attack escape to freedom. Funny how those things turn, in time. And, if you belong in a society where there's conservative intolerance for progressive ideas, and where there's suddenly there's an international episode, an international incident where a prime minister in India, this is fictional, but a prime minister in India does something like down an American spy plane, causing Indian Americans here to be targeted and Indian Americans to flee. What happens to Indians? They seek an underground railroad, a passage to Canada, then India, or a passage to India. Well, that sounds like a Forster novel. A passage to freedom. That's where the conductor comes in. Now, doesn't that make you want to see this? This play that I'm in? It's actually a reading, and it's a lot of history, but it's history that you don't know about, and it's history that explains what happens when the conductor, the former columnist, talks to the Indian American conservative who is now on the run, and their discourse is engaging, informative, entertaining too. I mean, there's other things too. There's some hot sex in it too. Oh, should I say that? There is some. Well, it's all off screen, but it's part of the story. It's called The Conductor. The Conductor, Ishmael Reed. It's at the theater for the new city.net. Go there, buy a ticket now. Tickets you get online. Hour before the show, they send you a link. You get the link. You go see the show. It's virtual. And, you know, a lot of people are kind of down on virtual. You know, they say, oh, you know, we're a theater. We do things live. Well, yeah. Have you seen the stats? I mean, I know we're not at the peak of where we were, but we are at around, 350 deaths a day on average in America, more than 1 million in 2 years or so. I mean, I heard someone at a box office tell me, oh, well, you know, we do live productions because we're out of the pandemic. We're not out of the pandemic. We're in the pandemic. We're coping with the pandemic. And some people are flaunting and, you know, they're like giving the pandemic, you know, but they can't, because not only is there the old variant, but there's a new variant coming in. And if you haven't been vaxxed, oh, shame on you. Before you go see, well, you can see the conductor because it's virtual. But I urge you to not just see the conductor, but I urge you to get your vaccinations. I've got 5. I've got 5 shots now. I'm proud of everyone, because they're not going to last long. Anyway, the conductor tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. Oh, what a show! And if you're on the West Coast, hey, you know, the whole evening ahead after you see the conductor. 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. The conductor. Go to theaterforthenewcity.net. Catch a show. I am pushing it because I have a very small part. Very small part. You'll say, Emil has a small part. Where is he? He's going to be here sometime. Emil said he's going to be here. Oh, there he is. Oh, you'll like it. You'll like the show. You'll like the show. A lot of history, a lot of entertainment. Ishmael Reed's The Conductor, Theater for the New City.net. Catch it now, please. Yeah, it runs through Sunday. So if you can't make it today or tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific, matinee on Sunday. Yeah, you didn't want to see that football game. You want to see him kick around Emil. You'll like it. It's good. It's good. All right. So we're going to talk about the news and other things like Warnock and Walker and Parkland, the death penalty, and we're going to talk about that Trump rally. Oh, and there wasn't a Trump rally, excuse me. Trump's reply, I couldn't read my notes, to the January 6th hearing. I don't know, Trump's lost it. I think he's lost it. But we're going to talk that, and we're going to talk history. I'm going to bring up my guest here, Professor Phil Gonzales, San Francisco State University College of Ethnic Studies, Professor Emeritus. My good buddy, Professor Dan, how are you?
I'm good. Are
Thank
we?
you.
Yep.
We're on. I see you.
We're on. We're working. It's up, and
We
it's
match.
chilly. It's chilly in San Francisco, man.
I know.
Our space heater went on. I couldn't believe it.
You've got the look of fall to you. You know, we got.
I do. I do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hold on to my hair, but
Well, look, it's good to see you. A lot to talk about. We're going to talk about October 18th. Today's the 14th, but we get into Filipino American History Month for real on the 15th. All to ourselves, because
yeah, we share it. We share it with Latinos for a minute.
yeah, for about 15 days. But there are a couple of things I want to talk about first. This play I'm in, Ishmael Reed's The Conductor, is about the reaction to the progressives who are on that San Francisco school board who got recalled. Also, the reaction to the recall of the district attorney, Chesa Boudin. And my question to you is, was that an overreaction, an anti-woke overreaction to progressives, or is that a trend? Is that because this play, the conductor, is about how there was a overreaction to these people? What do you think?
Yes, yes. I'm about 50-50 on this.
Yeah,
Okay, it
yeah.
was a it was a it was an overreaction. Okay, but the overreaction was from a segment of or segments of our Asian American communities that have always occupied a rather it's not even a center right position. I would say it's definitely a clear right position
Mm.
that is not, once again, conservative. It is not. It is not at all demonstrative of conservative values.
It's
Uh,
self-serving, is what it is.
it is self-serving,
No,
and
it's not
just
conservative. It's not ideological. In other words.
yes, just as remember the CCC, the
What?
Proposition 209,
Oh yeah, yeah.
was based on civil rights. They actually called it a civil rights
Initiative.
legislation,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
CRI.
and they cited MLK Jr. While they were pushing it. And the same thing is true here. It was self-serving. It was trying to get rid of. It was misogynistic.
Mhm.
Okay, it was anti-woman, really, because the greatest beneficiaries of affirmative action policy has been white women, numerically, okay, and qualitatively. That's the case. But they voted, once again, educated white women voted in favor of 209.
Yeah.
So the way that I approached it was, okay, is this a case of with this? I approached it with this question: is this a case of I've got mine, and I'm going to shut the damn door on everybody behind me? Okay, was it a conscious move, or was it something that was akin to I was able to achieve by merit,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and
And
and so
myself.
since I was able to achieve by merit, everyone else should now. Certain segments of our ethnic communities under the Asian American Pacific Islander rubric, which is always a troublesome problem, right? To be addressing people categorically that way because we're very different
Right.
across the board. But there's certain segments that have been consistently taking the position that affirmative action favors certain groups that don't deserve those benefits. That's it. We deserve those benefits, merit only. Okay, that's where it comes from. So we're
And so,
facing that now. There's going to be at least two cases, right?
yeah.
This Supreme Court session, and we're going to have to we're going to have to wait and see how folks handle this.
Yeah, well, it looks like, and that issue of affirmative action, how white conservatives took Asian Americans and used them as proxies to to try to defeat affirmative action, and it looks like they're going to be successful at the
Yes,
Supreme Court level. And if
yes.
it happens, it's going to change. Well, I don't know if I
Those groups that have you've been writing about this for decades. I remember reading articles that you wrote from afar. I mean, when you and the family were over on the East Coast or in the Midwest, and because this issue has come up so many times. How old is 209 at this point, right? That
yeah,
was that was a
95.
90s.
Yeah,
That was
midnight.
a 90s initiative. and
Yeah.
it passed. It passed overwhelmingly in California, right? It was an anti-affirmative action, and I had argued that at least 2/3 of it was going to be rendered unconstitutional by California law, and the only place that it could be challenged would be that it was constitutional by federal law, and they didn't take it there, so it didn't. It never never made it up to the U.S. Supreme Court.
See, but the fact that it won and it has been the law in California, some people would argue that, well, see, we've gone without affirmative action at places like UC Berkeley. We're better. It seems like we're better off, aren't we?
Actually, 2/3. My point was 2/3 of 209 was struck down by the courts. It could not be enforced.
Oh,
It could
right.
not be enforced. They, I call him
Cool.
I call him Dolph, but his real name is Dan Lundgren. He was the
Oh yeah,
attorney.
I
Yeah,
remember. Yeah,
and he tried to enforce the 209 against a Santa Clara County provision that counted people in their county and city employment. Right?
right.
They counted ethnicity, and he said under 209 you can't count ethnicity.
All
You
right, but
can't look at race,
still, Dan, part of it is
and
still,
and he lost.
but
He
but
lost.
the part of it is still good. Like for example, at UC, right? So
Uh,
I'm just saying that I know that there's still some trouble with admissions at UC, but I mean the people who would like to see affirmative action go away would say California's had to live with it. I guess the nation would have to live with it, learn to live with it too.
yeah, I you know UC has had the UC system, but Berkeley always leads off, right? I mean, there was only one time when other campuses got heavily involved, and that was Davis, UC Davis, with the Bakke case in
Right.
the late '70s, and the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, did in fact take that case up, and their decision was, discrimination, racism still exists,
Right.
so you can use racism, but you can't use it as a primary
Yeah.
element,
They
a
upheld it.
primary
And
factor.
and that is the law. The law of the
That's
land is
right.
you can use it as a factor. You can use it. You can't have quotas. Quotas are
Right.
illegal.
Exactly. That's
All
all
right.
it did was strike
All
down
right. So, all
quotas.
right. We got into this big thing about affirmative action, but that's an aspect of what's in this play, the
Conductor.
conductor. But it's also filled with history about all these instances where people of color have had to fight for these things and how they've been beaten down and they fought again. And he also talks about Asian American history and how Asians and particularly Indians in America, they were excluded just as Chinese and Filipinos were.
In fact, simultaneously with Filipinos, there
Yeah,
were signs all over Northern California, including Sacramento.
no,
No dogs or Filipinos, and they said Hindus.
no
They
Hindu.
used, they used the nomenclature Hindus, and obviously that was a reference to Indians. But yeah,
Right. I mean, but we were lumped in. The people saw
yeah.
Filipinos and the Indians together because there wasn't there something in 1917, I believe, or
Okay. Concerning which group?
concerning Indians or
Yeah.
Hindu.
In fact, it led to Bhagat Singh, the Bhagat Singh case. Is that what you're thinking about?
I think I just it's just a reference in this play, and that's how stock full of history this play is, and the conductor. And I think it's just interesting because most people don't know this. I mean, but if you are understand that we have all at some point been under attack and have been singled out and have been excluded, it makes you say,
Well, it's an element that, once again, both of us have covered. You in your journalism, and me in my classes.
yeah,
That we showed the long-standing, right, consistent exclusion of not only Asians generally, but specific Asian groups. There were specific laws against Asians. There were generalized laws as well, like the anti-miscegenation laws, right?
right, right,
But then Filipinos had the audacity to challenge the anti-miscegenation laws by saying we're not Orientals.
Yeah.
We're Indo-Malays. We're Malays. Malays.
Yeah.
So that law doesn't apply to us. And a judge in Los Angeles actually agreed with that for a moment.
Yeah.
That
For a
was
moment.
the for a moment,
Yeah.
and but the the California legislature took less than a year to add Malay to the list of excluded groups. Right?
Yeah,
Uh, we're talking about Jews, son.
yeah, when they really want us, they will include us when they really want us. So,
Right.
all right. Well, so I only want to bring up these issues here because the conductor is chock full of these that issues that they mention and that they remind us of, and it's all in this one little hour and 15-minute reading. If you go to theaterforthenewcity.net. Okay, on to the next subject. And this is in keeping with our topic of Filipino American History Month. But the first 15 days is Filipino, or is we share it with Hispanic Heritage Month.
Right.
And
Which
so,
is kind of appropriate because we got the same colonizer.
yeah, well, I mean, because it could be for Filipinos, we can have both sides of the month. The
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
15 days, because
That's right.
I like to call myself an ass panic sometimes. Asian Hispanic, but
uh,
they're
that's
actually
two A's. Two A's.
yeah, Asian
Not
American,
not two S's. Two
yeah,
A's.
Hispanic, Hispanic. So, Dan, all right. So this has come up in the news. I'm sure you've seen this. L.A. City Council, Nuri Martinez,
Oh God.
the president of the city council, had
Oh
to resign.
man.
She resigned and was going to be a regular council member, and then someone said, "No, no, 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 you got to get off." And then there were two other people, Gil Cedillo and Kevin De Leon, who were on the council in on this privately recorded call or private conversation that was recorded and leaked out. They said some racist things. And my question to you is,
And not even guardedly racist. I mean,
well,
they were just plainly and blatantly racist.
they,
And
yeah,
it was okay. What's your question?
well, I like you said, we'll just. I don't want to go into the slur, but there was a slur against African Americans, and there was a white gay parent had I believe had an adopted child who was African American, and there was a slur about the child, and then there was a slur against Native indigenous people, the Oaxacans, and so that's the damning part, the racist part. Nuri Martinez was the worst. She's the president of the city council. She was forced to step down bit by bit. First, she just said, "I'm gonna, just be a council member and give up the presidency," and then she just left altogether. She could not withstand the pressure. The other two are there, and Cedillo and De Leon, and there are calls for them to resign. Should
I
they
think
resign?
appropriately so. I think appropriately so.
Should they
You
resign?
know, yeah, I think so. They should have come out with criticism
Yeah, they did.
of Martinez, and they didn't do that. So that means that they were complicit, and they
Yeah.
did engage in the discussion. They did not come to the defense of the people who were slurred. They did not come to a criticism of Martinez. So hey, get off, get
Well,
off.
all right. Playing devil's advocate here. They didn't say anything. They didn't do anything except be quiet. Is it too? I mean, one of them is already out. Cedillo is going to be gone at the end of the term because he got primaried out. De Leon is considered a leader in the Hispanic community and is still has
Has
some
he
time.
apologized? Has he criticized Martinez?
I haven't heard anything. No.
Well, that's pretty representative of a long tradition of anti-African American attitudes within certain Latino communities. I've been
Well,
witness to it. I've been witness to it as a member of ethnic studies faculty. I've been witness to it in terms of my interactions with people in the community around political circumstances, and everyday language. You
Well,
know,
you're
people.
you're right. You're right in the sense that they were meeting at some private session to discuss how to get more Latinos onto the city council, and it's how to drop the district lines.
Right,
And it looked like they were going to do so at the expense of African American representation. So what you're
right.
saying, kind of,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
there's always a power thing. I mean, look at what happened in San Francisco, right? There was going to be a redistricting lines, and it could adversely affect certain Asian ethnic groups.
well,
Um,
well,
and
it's
and
funny.
it
Go ahead.
Yeah, they did have to succumb to the criticism. So there was slight changes. I had to look up and see what the third change was to make
Yeah.
sure that which district I was in. But yeah, it happens. It happens everywhere. People, politics is a contest for power. Purely and simply, it's a contest for power. So you're going to get in areas where certain districts uh, have a substantial number of voters, there's going to be attempts to shave those things. I mean, that's what gerrymandering is all about, right? And that's been the most consistent device used by so-called conservatives to reduce the influence of more voters uh, from the ranks of people of color.
All right. So the funny thing is what it does also is pit people of color against each other.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
you had uh, the Hispanics against the blacks, and then you had the slurs in this conversation and the calls from the community. One of the calls came from, or a segment of those, calls for the resignation of these city councilmen, the Hispanic city councilmen, were in fact Asian Americans. The Asian American Victory Alliance, they've come out to say Cedillo's got to go, De Leon's got to go. Uh, do you think they are making a power play move here for maybe an alliance with African Americans?
Both are a possibility. Um, there are a lot of Asian American groups, and I'm most familiar with people of our generation. But a lot of those people are termed out and also pretty much retired. They're still very active in the political process, right? But they're now the elders that get consulted with, and anyway, so there's a new generation coming up. But there are a lot of progressives in that group. People who are in mid career, in terms of their professions, and who have been active ever since even their high school days. There are a lot of younger people who started becoming very politically active in their high school days, and even more so during their college days. And we're not talking about the old style, 1950s politics or campus politics, which is a popularity contest. I mean, the campus politics is actually reflective
Yeah.
of it's a microcosm, really, of national and international politics.
All right. So if the calls are out there, the AAPI Victory Alliance is saying, yeah, Cedillo, De Leon out. You got Martinez already out. You got 3 new members. It sounds like they are trying to form this alliance to get more blacks and Asians or blacks and Filipinos into the council.
I think possibly. I think most of the people. You remember the battle between that was played up by civil rights, aging civil rights leaders in San Francisco. It was Eric Marr was being cast as a racist and anti-black
Yeah.
because Professor, well, actually Doctor Ackerman, who was the superintendent of schools at the time, Eric Marr had some criticisms about where her priorities were
Yeah.
uh, as a top administrator of the school district, and people who were civil rights champions came out and painted Eric as a and he's a friend of mine,
Yeah.
Uh, so I know him really well. Is my point, and there's not a racist bone in that guy's body. Same thing is true of his brother, who's a current supervisor. But they painted him very badly, and it got played in the weeklies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, so what do you think? I guess until we hear from Cedillo uh, or De Leon, can they write it out, or is the community pressure of a magnitude that they will not be able to stand on the sidelines without coming out, apologizing, or saying something strong about what happened?
I'm surprised. I'm surprised they haven't apologized yet. I
Yeah.
mean, that gives me great concern because it means that there's not much pressure coming from Latino and Chicano communities
Yeah.
on him.
The other thing that's wrong is that we don't know exactly who leaked it. We don't know what kind of secret meeting, secret phone call this was. We don't know, when. I mean, it just suddenly it was released, and then Nuri Martinez, got the worst of it. One thing to say is that because it had to do with redistricting, the Attorney General's office, Rob
That's right.
Bonta,
Yep.
America, he's looking into it now, or his office. What kind of impact do you think that's going to have?
That's the first thing I thought of, and I actually had a conversation with his former chief of staff, Dean Graffilo,
Yeah.
uh, and and we both agreed that there's so much stuff on Mr. Bonta's plate right now. It's unbelievable, and so for even at the national level, right, with this with abortion and all that stuff, and the possibility of affirmative action decisions by the court. And so, and he's up for reelection, right? He very short term
Well,
for him.
all of this is a way. The way I see it is, this is his way of campaigning.
Yeah,
This is way. This is just the campaign, right? He doesn't. He's not doing the retail stuff as much, although he is out there. But if you do your campaigning by taking action, by
that's
busting
right.
busting the fentanyl dealers, busting or making sure that the gun weapons or assault weapons gun ban,
Right, right.
so forth and so on. He is
Even
doing.
though the Supreme Court will probably strike that down, but you got to go for it anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
This is predominantly an anti assault weapon state. We were the first guys to run that stuff up in the 80s.
yeah, after the Stockton school shooting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
and
Correct.
and it was Feinstein who's still in
Yes.
office,
Yes.
but she couldn't keep it from sunsetting. She couldn't keep it,
No, it was a 10-year. That's right. It was a 10-year ban.
Yeah, but the thing is, funny how these things change. I mean, when the going's good, you got to get it because as situations change, look at immigration. The 65 immigration law. I mean, to have that back, it would seem like a fantasy now to have that kind of bipartisanship on
Right,
immigration.
right, right, right. Well, see, it wasn't perceived. We weren't perceived as a threat yet.
Not yet.
The numbers were low,
Right.
and they really needed instant right technicians,
Yeah.
and so particularly the Asian migrants or the potential for Asians who were really highly educated, right? And then people ask me, well, why these groups? Why particularly Hong Kong, the Philippines, and India? And I said, what is the medium of language at the university level? And they said, oh, people from South Korea send their kids to the Philippines for education because of the quality at the big universities, right? And because English is the medium of instruction, man.
Yeah.
Same thing is true of Indonesians, Malaysians. I met all kinds of kids when I'm in the Philippines, and usually I'm at UP Diliman. I
Yeah.
met all kinds of kids that from those countries whose parents finance their educations in the Philippines.
And that is the virtue of colonialism, the ongoing of colonialism.
There are a lot of ironies. There are a lot of ironies to being Filipino. That's definitely true. That is absolutely true.
All right. With that, let's move on to the next issue. We talked about this a lot in our previous show. I'm not anti Draymond Green. I'm pro Golden State Warrior,
Right
but
on, right on.
the fact that the Warriors allowed Draymond Green to get away with that punch.
Oh, sure. It's very penalty light. We don't even know what the fine is going to be yet.
Yeah, no suspension. I
Yeah,
said
yeah, yeah.
yesterday, it reminded me of the way the GOP embraces Trump. And GOP
Oh.
supporters, they say, "Oh, I know Trump is bad, but we can win with him. We win with Trump." And that's exactly what sports fans or Warrior fans are saying. Oh, I don't like what Draymond Green has done to Jordan Poole. Poor Jordan Poole. But we can't win without Draymond. We need Draymond. We need Draymond. And
Well,
that
we should be completely transparent with your audience. We've had this conversation 2 times or 3 times,
well, wait a
and
minute.
and
But
and and I didn't go that far. All I said was, look, you got to look at the role that he plays. That he's one of the greatest
I I
defense
am going
players.
that far. The guy, Draymond Green, first of all,
I should be more serious about this. It's true. He should be penalized to a greater
well,
extent.
here's the thing. It's not that you should be more serious about this, but uh, I take violence seriously, and Asian American Pacific Islanders who've been more than 11,000 who've been victims of of violence, of transgressions, violence including death over the last 2.5 years during the pandemic. Casual violence. If you want to count what Draymond did, a full force punch to Jordan Poole, casual violence, you can't condone it. It's not. It should be a zero tolerance factor at the workplace. Because some people say, "Oh, well, these are big guys. They play sports. This is what you do in sports." This was practice. This was not, like going at it and punching in the throes of play, of throes of doing the athleticism of the sport. This was there was like a second of downtime. He was allowed to. You can watch the video, TMZ. You can see, Draymond Green thinking, okay, do I punch him? He comes up to him, gets pushed, and then he comes in with the counter. And I just think you got premeditation there. You got the video, and he doesn't even get a suspension. He comes back and plays tonight. He
Right.
comes and
That's
plays,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
and he's going to get his ring ceremony. And as I said yesterday, Jordan Poole, he's not only going to get his big max extension contract for doing well, he's going to get it because he's good, but for doing what he could get the franchise. I think they realize he could own the franchise. You know,
I
the only
don't know. I don't know. You're talking about going and taking a lawsuit action. Yeah, he could get something out of it, but
they could
they're
get a
gonna.
whole lot, he get a whole lot more than a max contract, and that's all that the top NBA players get, maybe. But
Yeah, yeah.
consider this:
He could own the franchise.
when you get to a level, right, when your source of income is the franchise,
Yeah.
right, and the only reason Draymond Green is a rich man today, he might get some endorsements and things like that, but it's because he is paid handsomely by this franchise, and it makes him not just a player; he's a partner. But
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah,
he's a bad partner though when he starts beating
that's
up
right.
young
That's
players.
right.
So I think he just like ripped up or they just ripped up his partner ticket and say, I don't know if it's going to last more than a year. One guy, Tim Kawakami, used the divorce analogy, and that might be an apt one in this case for, a year trial separation. But I think it's important that that we look at this and see it for what it is. I'm never going to root for him. I just, I maybe I can forgive, I can't forget. But I also think I take violence seriously. And you see older Asian Americans get beaten up. You see Asian Americans get beaten up. Uh, you got to take violence seriously. And you take a punch like this and you don't take a stand on the punch on Jordan Poole. I say shame on the Golden State Warriors and shame on the NBA. there will be eternal shame on Draymond Green. I mean, it's
Uh,
not going.
things are going to happen to him.
It's
Things
not
are
going.
going to happen to him, and everybody's going to turn around and say, "Okay, so what?" I mean, what happens if he starts being the quote victim of some serious fouls?
Oh,
Um,
you know,
yeah.
from other players. Well, that could happen too. I don't know. I think that at some point you just hope. I mean, Steve Kerr, the coach, was saying how wise Jordan Poole was, and how mature beyond his years. Yeah, yeah. Oh, how mature Jordan Poole is, considering that the Warriors couldn't be honest and they tried to keep this inside. That's what they're more mad that this was leaked out.
That's right.
That that should tell you everything. Like I said in my column, uh, if a crime is committed and people want to keep it inside, that sounds to me like Jeffrey Dahmer. Let's keep
Oh,
let's keep it in the refrigerator. Let's not make.
oh God.
And that to me,
Oh
all right,
man.
all right, let's move on. Next subject. Next subject.
There's there was suspicion that there was cannibalism associated with Dahmer. So, I don't know if you want to
For
go
what?
that.
No,
Yeah. So,
there's no suspicion. Guy, guy, guy was the media.
oh, I got all kind of jokes and they're
No,
so bad. They are
the
so bad. I'm gonna have to let them go.
no, the guy was a meat eater. The guy was a meat eater.
Oh no, God.
Uh, all right. So Dan, let's talk about. Now this is a good topic to talk about. The Parkland murderer. Kurt,
Oh yeah, life,
he
life
gets
rather than the death
not the death
penalty.
penalty. All right. So look, I bet you know my stance on the death penalty, right?
Well, it's not a hard guess. If you are anti-violence, very likelihood, to the degree that you are, you're going to be pro-life in the sense that you're going to be anti-capital punishment,
Yeah.
and
Very.
and that is a very Catholic thing to do. If you really want to be truly Catholic,
Mm.
you can't say I'm anti-abortion and then on the other hand say that you're okay with capital punishment.
Right. I mean, that's a good guess. You're right. You're right on target, Professor. You're right. I am, in fact, and have been anti-death penalty for a long, long time. And I was listening to one of the fathers, Gutenberg. Fred Gutenberg is his name.
Right? Yeah.
He's a very vocal advocate for the Parkland families. Also, an Asian American, I think, related to Peter Wong. Um, sweet kid who was killed. Look, my heart goes out to all of them, and this is the way. This is the only way that you can talk about this. That yes, you can feel your passion for your family member who was killed, and darn it, you can have this anger. But this is why you're not on a jury. This is why you don't decide for the rest of the people, the citizenry, about what to do with the penalty of this Cruz guy, Nicholas Cruz. And I listened to Gutenberg. He was on television. I heard what he was saying. He doesn't like the mental health defense. He doesn't like any of that. He doesn't think that mental health excuses you. Okay, but why the call to get some guy's life? It's like that. That's
And he wasn't alone. I mean, there were a lot
oh
of
yeah,
the
it's
families. Yeah, the Parkland families were very disappointed, and
right.
they were actually distraught over the decision.
I understand. Look, and if one of my kids were was victimized and killed, I'd feel the same way. I'd feel the same way, and I would speak out. But you know what? I would know that the jury was right, and all it took was one. Right? It just took one juror.
Well, I
Is
think news I got was that there were three.
were
Who,
there three? Okay.
yeah,
I,
there were. Well, you're right that it only takes one
it
because
only
it
takes
has to be a unanimous decision. But I
right.
think there were as many as three who were against it, and I could understand that, particularly from a Florida jury. There's going to be a lot of Christians, a lot of Catholics who are in fact pro-life and who are anti-capital punishment.
Well, I mean,
California was anti-capital punishment,
yeah,
and it was completely illegal to do capital punishment for several years.
yeah,
And it started during the first Brown administration, first Jerry Brown administration, his first 8 years, and it took a statewide initiative, another initiative,
yeah,
to restore a limited form of capital punishment.
yeah. I think that it's just wrong to kill or to take someone else's life or be to be so distraught by violence and then say, I am so distraught by violence, let's go do it again towards someone else. I mean,
It's an eye for an eye. It's simplistic eye for an eye
right.
judgment, and
Yeah,
it has more to do with vengeance than it does with justice. You got to deal with the law, and if the law allows for life imprisonment without possibility of parole, and particularly if there are processes where the prisoner, the convicted person, is reminded on a regular basis of the gravity of their act, right, and the harm that it's caused to the families affected. And I think that should be done all the time. I think the person should be forced to reflect on the crime.
yeah. I think, yeah. I don't know what happens to Cruz now in terms of where how he lives out his life. He is going to live out his life, but you're right. If there was something like some kind of contemplation where he has to be reminded of this every day, that would be, you know, it's sort of like you put people away to rehabilitate, but they never rehabilitate. You put people away for life. What are they going to do with their lives? You don't just warehouse them. I would like to see something, maybe something. Well, you couldn't put it in the law, but it would be nice if there was something that said, okay, he's going away for life, but there's something else he does, so that the families can feel a little better, because it's totally normal for them to feel the kind of anger, because they think that, my kids were shot and this guy gets to live. It's not fair. It isn't fair, but
Hmm. It
unfortunately,
isn't fair.
it's justice. It's
Yep.
it's
Yep.
justice. Okay, let's go on to the next. Uh, the next one, Warnock and Walker, they're debating tonight, and the midterms are important, and
No kidding.
the midterms in Georgia, Wisconsin, in Nevada, the
Would,
Senate.
would you say would you say that this midterm election, uh, and in national as well as statewide effects, can you remember another midterm election that's as important as this one?
You know, midterm elections are usually something people skip. They usually think,
Right.
oh,
That's right.
it's just a referendum on the president. It's not, it's not a big deal. But this one's a big deal, because if the Congress is so split, uh, you cannot you can determine everything by the makeup of both the House and the Senate, and it's better to have the majority in the Senate than the House, is what I'm learning, or what
Oh yeah, definitely,
what people
definitely.
see, and that's why uh, Wisconsin,
Well, yeah.
Georgia, Nevada, and the other place.
Pennsylvania is one.
Yeah.
Ohio's a possibility.
Oh, Ohio too. Yeah. All right. So those five, but
Yeah,
definitely those.
there's 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I thought Arizona, but man, Katie Hobbs is who? Who?
Hey,
She's
wait.
not even she's not doing appearances, and she's refusing to debate. She says there's no way that you can have an intelligent conversation with that person.
with,
Uh,
with Carrie Lake,
yes,
but
yes.
I didn't see the polls in Arizona, but I gather that she has a slight lead.
Yeah, and the way that Hobbs is playing, I suspect that lead could grow.
Oh well, that
So
would be good. I hope so. I like Katie Hobbs. People got to know her when
no,
she.
no, I'm saying Katie Hobbs is behind, and she's going to be behind. I think she's
Oh,
going to lose more ground.
ah, Well,
Well,
I don't.
general, the
I,
in between media, right? And what little moderate media there is, right, that tries to strike a balance.
yeah.
Even PBS, in other words, right, is saying we don't get what Hobbs is doing because she's not touring the state. She's not making nice with the voters in the burbs and the rural areas, and she's not debating. So just from a factual point of view, right?
See, I was wondering why we were hearing more about the Kelly race than the Hobbs race.
That's right.
I hear about the Hobbs race in Arizona. It's only that Carrie Lake is sort of like coming up is close, or and sometimes she's ahead, sometimes she's behind. It's neck and neck. I didn't hear about this thing about Hobbs. I thought Hobbs was a good candidate, but maybe she feels like if Kelly's so far ahead, it appears that he is, then maybe she doesn't have to bother as much. I don't know. I'm speculating. The other races are interesting because I think Warnock and Walker. You got the preacher and
the football, the
the
former
football.
football player that likes to talk about pregnant cows.
Yeah, the football philanderer. I like Warnock. He's with the Ebenezer Baptist Church. We'll see what he has to say. I heard that there's stuff about him that they're going to release. There's stuff on everyone, but
Right.
the good guys tend to overcome that. The bad guys, like Walker, I don't know how he overcomes this except with money from Republican super PACs,
And they've been getting it.
and that is a problem. That is a
Yeah.
problem with the Republican super PACs can say, okay, let's just put some more money in and we'll just bypass that.
Well,
And
did you see the two clowns that were on either side of him while he was talking about he was doing his
oh,
bull and
is,
cow?
is he on
Scott, yes, yes.
or
Scott,
he's on
Scott Tuberville was standing there, man, and he was doing that story, and they were going. You could tell they were trying to not be there. They were trying to be in freaking visible,
well,
It was
I
terrible. I
I
thought it
think
was funny as hell.
I think Herschel Walker is
Well,
he's
he
just
can say he said, "I'm not that smart."
I know he's a guy who wants to be manipulated. He said, I'm
True.
here to be manipulated. I'm here, we know how it was. I'm not this, but they like me. They want a figurehead. I'm a figurehead. I'm popular. Vote for me because I'm going to do anything that these guys pulling the strings will say. This is a bad thing
Mhm.
about Walker, and it reminds me of Manny Pacquiao a little bit. When Manny Pacquiao was popular when he was first coming on the scene, I thought, watch out, he's so popular, he's a man of the world, he could be anything. And I would talk to really smart Filipino analysts, and they'd say, "You better watch out, Emil, because Manny Pacquiao, um, he's not that smart. He'll do anything that anyone tells him to." And
Thanks for the compliment. I mean, about
uh,
really
no, it
really
wasn't
sharp
you.
analysts.
No, 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 you probably said something to me.
I sure as hell did.
I'm talking about someone else, another person.
Okay.
Was you, I would have said you. But
Okay.
I told you
I
someone in Hawaii.
thought you were just trying to disguise it so that we look less less fellow traveler.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like we're not in collusion or
Yeah, that's right. There it is.
okay. Well, and look, and to this day, I regret sort of my overweening like for Manny Pacquiao at the beginning, not now. I mean, it didn't take much though. All you had to do was see his homophobia and to see that he is not that smart and he will do what anyone will tell him. That's what I see in Herschel Walker. That's what I don't like. And I hope that Warnock, the Reverend, Ebenezer Baptist Church, MLK's church, I hope he prevails in the debate tonight. All right, next, let's talk about January 6th briefly. Trump is
Woo.
that was a big deal, but they saved it for last, and that was good because I actually kind of was not with it for the entire hearing until they showed the videos, and the videos were emotional. It's like watching the Draymond Green Jordan Poole video. You watch the video and you're into it. You watch the video of January 6th, you say, damn, how do those, look at Nancy Pelosi in action. Look at her, saying she's going to punch out Trump. I I I actually like the fact that they showed that, because it showed that they were acting like they were going to take care of our government and get it to the finish line. Meanwhile, Trump's in the White House. It makes Trump look bad. So, what is your overriding? What's your thoughts on the subpoena? What it means, and if it
Oh,
means anything?
well, subpoena. It's demonstrative. It's purely demonstrative. Obviously, he can't afford, and his representatives, his lawyers, they can't afford to let him get up there, even if he'd want to. Because he's so nuts and so egomaniacal that he thinks he can beat them by
Right.
appearing. So that's one thing that's in favor of the possibility that he might appear.
Mm.
But I think I think people said over my dead body, stuff like that. I mean, they're not going to let him do that. People on his side, but look at what he's done against his own interests and against the interests of the people who have warned him. They've
Well,
all jettisoned. They've all been jettisoned, and 80% of them have testified.
yeah, and
And
when
so
they have, yeah, and
but,
the
yeah,
ones who are against him have all taken the fifth. They're the loyalists, but there have been those who've testified against him.
and the ones who have taken the fifth are setting themselves up for criminal prosecution once again, and there's not going to be anybody around to pardon them.
So,
Okay, so it's really pretty ridiculous. I mean, if the general public, disgusts me, because they don't. Once it starts getting a little complex, just a little twist or turn here, right? They kind of tune out. They kind of tune out, and I think it's really important to understand that the more that Trump says at this point, right, the deeper the hole he digs for himself.
well, so what I don't get still is, how can people still be out there, Republicans, election deniers, supporting Trump, because it's still his party. No one has come out and said
Yes, that's right.
not his party anymore. Look, he's got subpoena. He
Well,
got
there are some. There are a few who are coming out and saying, we got to stop supporting this guy. He's done. But they're only people who I suspect Romney will come out with some statements. But it's people like that. Romney's in a safe position, right? He's never going to lose his position.
Well, this
So
is the thing. People who are threatened, right? Who feel like we've got to embrace Trump or we lose. It's sort of like
yeah, that's because they live in those states where that's the constituency that they're dealing with.
the constituency should be smart enough to say, look at the
Uh,
facts. We can't support Trump. He's a
Eh,
loser.
it has
I mean,
nothing to do with smart. It has to do with white supremacy for many of them.
I,
Okay, it has to do with the maintenance of power, even if they're not racist, right? They want to ignore the fact that one of the driving forces in their party is racism. One of the driving forces is misogyny. One of the driving forces is anti-LGBTQ, right? All of that stuff. It's the party of injustice. This is what they stand for. This is what they want. They want a society that is like the imagined society that existed in the 1950s.
yeah,
Okay?
but my problem with that is, okay, you want that, but look at what Trump represents, and look at the hole he's dug for himself. He's no longer. You can't. I don't think after yesterday, it's. I mean, I think it's less likely that he's a winner, but more a loser, and less likely. I mean, you used to be able to justify election denial by saying, "Well, we need Trump because he's going to win," but I don't know if you can still say that. And
Well,
if you still say that, then it is a matter of.
no, I think there's a lot of people that know he can't win. I think there's a lot of people. I think they're imagining that the guy he's going to run against is Biden, and what a lot of the reductionist perspective on 2024 is that, or even 20 the midterm, is that the more you talk about Biden, the better it is for Republicans. Okay, the
Right.
more you talk about Trump, the worse it is for Republicans, the better it is for Democrats. That's a very reductionist position, but it actually is, it is feasible.
So
Okay,
what you're saying is this is the way the Republicans think they can win, and
exactly.
they'll go down with the ship because if they think Biden's the competitor,
That's right. We
then
can beat him with Trump.
and so that's why they stupid people like Kevin McCarthy are Kevin McCarthy from
I
California.
can't disagree with that. I can't disagree that McCarthy is really stupid.
Kevin McCarthy should know better. He's hanging in there.
Yeah. What about the rest of those clowns? What
Well,
about Cruz?
that's the thing. I don't understand. I think that after yesterday, people should see. Okay, we just need better leadership. The problem is there is no better leadership that can win. Cruz can't win. Lindsey Graham can't win. None of the other Republicans can win. Tom Cotton can't win. No one can win. Only Trump has that mystique of badness or whatever you call it. You know,
he has a, he has a satanic appeal.
but
Yes.
yeah, but it's like Draymond Green. The Warriors feel they can't win without Draymond Green, so they got to look. Okay, he's
Nah, I don't know if they. Nah, I wouldn't take it that far. I would say the Warriors would be concerned, right, about their quality of play without Draymond Green.
they.
I don't think they're at the point where we can't win without him. I don't think it's like that.
I think they are. Otherwise, if
I
they
don't know. They got a lot of young talent, man.
I,
You see how these guys have been playing.
but the
To
key
watch that game the other day,
on the board,
damn.
they're good, but I think the fact that they didn't suspend Draymond means they're playing it kind of cool. They're playing it,
Well,
and
yeah.
they're
There's
and
a
they're
lot of there's a lot of political and cultural elements to that. It's not just about the whether or not they can win without him.
I just think that really uh, I want to see more Republicans after yesterday. After so
Nah, it ain't gonna happen, man.
I want to see more Republicans come out and say, "Yeah, Trump can't win. Trump's a loser. I'm going to find someone else." I think that would be better. And going down with your Republican candidate than saying, "I'm sticking with Trump. He's the only guy who can win." And that's my
Look. All you got to do is go back to 2016, my friend. Go
yes,
back
yes,
to 2016. Everybody was looking, especially after you can grab them by the,
yeah,
and they thought it's over for Trump.
yeah,
And I said, you guys aren't talking to the right people because the people that I've been talking to say things like, I just, Hillary is terrible.
yeah.
They did not want to accept, particularly women on the liberal side, did not want to accept the level of hatred and
Yeah,
animosity that
it was
people
real.
had, including white educated women that they had against Hillary.
It
And
was
now it's about Biden is incompetent. He's too freaking old. Every time he stumbles or either verbally or physically, right? They say, "Look at that! This guy. That's the president of the United States." Now, has he done almost everything right except for the withdrawal from Afghanistan? Right?
yeah,
You know?
that was really Trump aided, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He was the guy who started the withdrawal, and he made a date. He was the guy who set the date. You know, but see, that doesn't matter. What matters is what sticks in people's minds. And they saw all of these Afghans that helped us, try to win the peace and order in their own home country, and we didn't get them out. We didn't get, we got many out, but we didn't get enough out, and now the country's gone to hell. The wrong people are starving, and the wrong people are in power.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Look, we're not going to solve this. Let's see what happens there. Let's move on. Final topic today because I've got a race in about 5 minutes or so. But let's talk about October 18th. This is the 14th.
You have a show tonight?
Yeah, I do have a show tonight at
Yeah,
5 p.m. Pacific, 8
yeah, that's what I
Eastern.
thought. Yeah,
The conductor, theater for the
I'm
theater for the new city
gonna
drama.
watch it over the weekend.
So let's talk about October 18th, 1587, because that's when the first Filipinos were were said to have arrived in America, in the Americas, and they were ship hands of one Pedro de Unamuno, who was kind of like a second-rate explorer who was trying to, lost his boat, trying to get his boat, was in Macau, was sailing for Spain, and made his way from Macau to what appears to be, and it's a question, either Morro Bay or maybe San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, somewhere around SLO.
So the Filipino American National Historical Society believes it was Morro Bay. But my question to you is, how should people feel about this? This was the first Filipinos? I mean,
First
if
known contact, and it's documented because of the ship's log.
yeah. But if I'm
And
Trump, right? If I'm Trump, I say, I like my first Americans. I like my first Filipinos to actually stay here and buy real estate. They did not buy real estate. They just came here and they dropped some blood and they left. It's sort of like the same thing that McCain said, or that Trump said about McCain. I
yeah,
like prisoners who don't get captured. So, what do you think about
yeah,
that? Some
that is
people,
a horrible Trump imitation.
I'm not a good Trumper. I'm
You
not a good.
gotta you gotta watch more Jamie Foxx. I mean,
Yeah.
he does an amazing job with that. I swear, it just makes me roll over and double up. He's so good.
Well,
But anyway,
all right.
yeah,
So what do you think? The Filipinos came. They were ship hands. They stepped.
I was uncomfortable with the claim, the way we treated the claim from the first time that I ever saw it. First of all, before Fonz or any of those other folks knew about it, uh, I and a colleague of mine in Asian American Studies we received it was the first time I ever got a message with a post-it on it. So it was a post-it, and it was from an anthropology professor, Leo Kimnitzer is his name, and the post-it said, "Is this the first contact of Filipinos with the quote New World?" Right, and we said, "Yeah, it appears to be the first contact." Right, and it was entirely in Spanish. It was it was the ship's log in Spanish. But my colleague Malcolm Collier is very fluent in Spanish. Much better than I, and so we went through the damn thing and said, "Wow, this is pretty hot." But I didn't do anything with it because I wasn't the guy teaching Filipino American history. It was somebody else. And so we just handed it over and said, "Here." So everybody started getting excited. Marina Espina did some research on it. She was at the University of New Orleans. She's a librarian there. Wrote articles on it, and it started becoming popularized. Right? She actually spoke at SF State. Yeah.
But she did not connect to Pedro de Unamuno. She was talking about the galleon trade to New Orleans, right? Or did she write?
Uh, Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, but because of the Unamuno discussion, right, she was able to show that it fit within the timeline, right. The
I see.
problem was that there are all kinds of spaces, if we can call it that, where there wasn't a continuity of presence. Okay,
Mhm.
and that was also true of the landing on the central coast of California by Unamuno. Yes, the Filipinos landed, and it's documented, right? But I think that some of them stayed on and actually blended in with the locals.
Some of them say, I mean, do you know that there was a Filipino community? Is there a trail of lumpia somewhere?
We ought to do the DNA and find out. The problem is that there were Filipinos who arrived in the 20th century that blended in, and so if you were to do the DNA of the modern Chumash, right,
Mhm.
Indians and other local groups in that area, then you'd have to get somebody who had any contact with Filipinos from before, right, the 20th century, even the end of the 19th century. So that's the problem. And anyway, the point is, without that continuity, see, the thing that the Chinese have in their favor is they actually it's a mandate, a cultural mandate, that people write home and let everybody know where they are. And so you can go to the Gold Country and see gravestones of Chinese, right? Filipinos, they may have arrived, in the 1580s, but so what? If we
They
don't have a
didn't leave,
continuity of record,
they
right?
didn't leave a
It's
mark. They
yeah,
didn't leave a
it's
stone.
it's very difficult to say here we are. This is proof that we're American or more American than everybody else because we were here a couple hundred years before y'all declared yourselves a nation.
Yeah. So it's significant in a kind of bittersweet way. Then,
Yes, it
I mean,
is an assertion, right, of presence, but it's not an assertion of continuity of presence. Yeah,
and
we were here, but
it's not Jamestown. It's not Plymouth Rock, but
yeah,
but we were
yeah,
here.
yeah.
I
It's not Chinatown. Yeah,
mean, it's and it's what the Filipinos do. We like, it's not like we're driving through and like saying, yeah,
yeah. It's yeah. What can you say that we deserve to be noticed as Americans? I mean, still the reality is that the known settlements,
mhm.
right, are the New Orleans settlements that Espina and other people have written about.
And that was
There's like
later,
100-year gap, right?
and that was later, right?
That was later.
That was in the 17th
That was
century,
later, and the big claim there is that they were there before the United States was the United States, right? So
which is
before
something.
1736.
But if they only left like a I don't know, like a Sissig truck stop or something, and they put
They
if
had
they
the shrimp dancers, man. They had San Malo. Remember that?
yeah, San Malo. But if they only had something like that in Morro Bay, then we could say there it was.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I but it still means something that we were here.
Yeah, well, yeah, it does, and
I
and there is the possibility, like I said, that people jumped ship as that's one of the ways that other people, especially other Asian American scholars, describe how Filipinos were established in the New Orleans area. In actually in Baton Rouge and around
Baton
you know
Rouge,
the,
red stick.
yeah, that's right, Red Stick.
Like what's that?
Um,
The
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Eskrima. Eskrima.
And the whole Bayou thing. I still every time I think about this, I remember that interview that you did
Oh, yeah,
in my
I went to
presence.
New Orleans. I went seeking the what is it? The
Well, no, you had a radio show on KBRG or something, and we were
yeah,
doing a live interview
yeah.
of a Cajun Filipino.
I was seeking
Cajun Filipino, and he was really cool. What do you guys call yourselves? And he said, "Kunas,
Kunas Filipinos. Yeah,
Kunas Filipinos." And we had to shut the sound off on it. We had to kill our mics. We were laughing so hard. It's funny as hell. Oh
all
my
right.
god!
Well, listen, Dan. Well, look, we're about out of time.
Oh man!
But I
No,
will just
you gotta get prep. You got to do makeup.
uh, well look. I appreciate you coming on. Always a pleasure to have you on to talk about these things. Um, And always nice seeing you. I'll talk to you off camera. It's good to see you. Hi, happy solo Filipino American History Month on the 15th. It's ours alone,
That's right. It's ours next week.
boy. And we'll talk more. We'll come back again next week, right?
Yeah, okay, that's the plan. That
Okay.
is the plan. We can talk about why Elon doesn't want to fund Starlink.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's. We can talk about that.
Well,
Elon.
I'm a little short on cash.
Yeah,
I got to buy Twitter. You know.
44 billion.
Wait. So the Ukrainians could actually win if we give them communication device. I don't know. I don't know. Vlad might not dig it, man.
Shouldn't have said that. All right. So, all right, Dan. Next week, there he is, Daniel Phil Gonzales, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies History Professor Emeritus, San Francisco.
Emeritus.
Emeritus.
I'm an old guy.
Yeah, San Francisco State University. All right, Dan. Take care. Thank
Thank
you.
you. All power,
Yeah.
and I will watch the conductor.
Conductor,
The
yes.
Conductor.
That's the Conductor. It's theaterforthenewcity.net. That's tonight, Saturday, Sunday matinee, 3 p.m. All right. So regular listeners to the show know that you can catch this show on amok.com. The repeat, you can catch it on Twitter at Emil Amok. Catch it on YouTube, the Emil Guillermo channel on YouTube. I know. Hey, like us, friend us, do everything they ask because this is low. This is not exactly a high budget operation here. Emil Amok's Takeout, and appreciate everyone being here. Catch the Conductor, theater for the new city.net. I told you about that. 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock. It's a virtual reading, so you can be anywhere in the world and catch it. Okay, so regular listeners to the show also know I like to end this off with a little meditation, a little loving self-kindness. And I want to use as an example the Asian American woman who won a Genius Award, the MacArthur Genius Award. And she said, I have imposter syndrome. This doesn't happen to people like me. It happens to someone else. She had imposter syndrome. She felt a sense of shame. For what? For being Asian American. When you hear that, when you hear yourself say it, you hear someone else say it, this is when you have to go into self-love mode, self-compassion, loving self-kindness, and turn it to yourself. But before you do, turn it toward others. See the love in other people, send it to them. And guess what? It comes back. And then use that love that comes back for self-kindness, self-loving, self-care. And you'll win. You'll trust me. You'll win. So, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Can I say the Conductor one more time? Hey, theaterforthenewcity.net this weekend through Sunday. Catch it. Virtual reading. I got a small part in it. Watch the replays on amok.com. Till then, back on Monday, live, 2 p.m. Pacific. Mahal.